The FDA plans to open up distribution of Pfizer's COVID vaccine for adolescents aged 12 to 15 by next week. But instead of a shot, it will be administered via Tide Pod.
In addition to Cinco de Mayo, today is also National Oyster Day. So no matter what you're celebrating, it'll involve doing shots until you puke.
And finally, Mitt Romney was called a traitor and a communist at the Utah Republican Convention. It was because he reportedly drank a Sprite before 5 p.m. Welcome to Biden time. We are indeed here and talking about so many different things, but some very kind accolades in the chat that I'll bring in right here from our pal Storage Yard resident. It is always a great day when I can watch your podcast. Thank you, Storage Yard resident. We always appreciate people who heap the praise upon us. I think it's actually where I wanted to start is not up at the Storage Yard, although I'm sure it's lovely. I wanted to talk a little bit about Republicans and how there's this movement to get Liz Cheney out of the leadership position. Mitt Romney being booed and, as mentioned a moment ago, called a traitor and a communist. I think you're finding that, it's very easy to forget about why certain Republicans were speaking out against things on, January 7th. That's a lifetime ago. That's the old stuff. They're not about the old stuff. Also excoriated earlier today included Mike Pence, still catching former President Trump's ire, Mike Pence, and Mitch McConnell, blaming Mitch McConnell for turning this into a socialist country. I would say says a lot about your understanding of his body of work. It seems like it might not be a good time to be a non-Q approved Republican. Tamra, is that? Do you feel like you got to go full Q if you want to stay in the GOP at this point?
Certainly. When has it ever been a good time to not be a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Josh Hawley? They are the prodigal sons and daughters, and this faction of the Republican Party, of course, is massive and mighty, but they are, as we've discussed on this show several times, they're doing themselves a disservice, and Republican politicians are doing themselves a disservice to kowtow to these people, because the fact that Biden was elected shows that the majority of Americans, obviously those of the opposing political party, but those Republicans and independents make up the people who are against everything, that do not follow the same ideologies as these people. So they're only going to continue. They're going to shrink. They're hurting the Republican Party, and at the same time, they're only getting angrier. So to be a Republican and to not be in the Q camp, it's a tough position to be in, but it's the one that is eventually going to prevail, I think.
You think that the Q train is the one that's going to stay on the track?
It's going to crash.
And or you think it's going to crash?
The Q train is the one that's going to crash. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I can only imagine who they will blame if the Q train does indeed crash. Scott, what do you?
Jesus, what it was his will.
Yeah, or just some guy named Doug that everybody's supposed to respect. Scott, what do you feel is how difficult is it? Are you finding yourself, maybe not Mitch McConnell, but you can probably feel some sympathy for Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, some of these people who are like, I'm a Republican because of my beliefs and they in a certain area, not because I want to be a full blown tinfoil hat wearer. What do you see about a schism that is only getting worse in the GOP?
Yeah, I mean, as I've said all along since the Trump era, since 2016, I've always kind of found myself having these strange bedfellows with Republicans that I would normally never in a million years be sort of supporting. And that would include Liz Cheney, the daughter of Dick Cheney would be one of the last people I would think, even before, Mitt Romney, just to see the type of people that I'd be like, yeah, I mean, it's great to see some people that have some principle, and it's embarrassing, in my opinion, to see these Republican politicians continue to uh, connect themselves with either these Trump base voters or these conspiracy theorists, because at the end of the day, as we've talked about, it is a losing strategy. So why they would not be, people with principle like Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney, and understand that they're in, as Tamara said, a losing strategy. I mean, look, Donald Trump only won in 2016 because Hillary Clinton was more hated. It wasn't because people loved Donald Trump. And he only won in the Electoral College by having a very weird, close vote in multiple states that flipped, that had not gone Republican in over 30 years in the Rust Belt. He did not win by any resounding victory, and he lost the popular vote in 2016, and that should have been a wake-up call for Republicans. And then again, their wake-up call should have been in 2018 when they lost the House. And again, their wake-up call should have been in 2020 when a sitting incumbent president lost for the first time in over a generation, and also took the House and the Senate that had two seats in deep Republican Georgia that went Democratic. But for some reason, they're part of this whole thing with the cult of personality and continue to allow themselves. And I find it laughable, but also embarrassing for them, because it's laughable in the sense that they're going to continue to let Democrats have the upper hand. And as I said on this podcast, it doesn't necessarily mean that, I mean, obviously with gerrymandering, the House is going to be very difficult for Democrats to hold with the razor thin majority, but it doesn't mean that they won't be able to pick up seats like George W. Bush did 20 years ago in 2002, the midterms. And again, it would be to their own detriment, because they're not reading the big picture well enough. And they just, again, have to look to states like California, and then moving on into states now like Virginia, and now potentially Georgia, that are going to be flipping Democratic going forward. And it's just a losing strategy for them. And it's just, and until they can get their party on the same page, they're going to have a very difficult time being able to win. And if they were smart, they would be going after those moderate voters who are generally Republican in the suburbs and are open and receptive to Republican ideas, but will not vote Republican if they continue this type of trajectory, and will continue to vote for moderate Democrats. And it's to Republicans' own failures if they don't wake up sooner than later and see that attaching themselves to Trump or these conspiracy theories are a losing strategy, and a bigger losing strategy in the long run for them and their party.
Yeah, I mean, look, just to that point, I'll throw it to you in a second, Tamara. There's just some very simple numbers. Was it James Carville who said it's the economy stupid? I mean, that's and if you look at, I just saw a chart about this yesterday, and if it's a chart, I can understand it and retain it. If it's sentences and articles, it's right out the same year it goes into. But the states that Biden won, you saw this chart that showed that they lost jobs during the pandemic at such an overwhelming number. So states that were having economic hard times were voting not to keep things the way they were. They were against the status quo. And that's not even necessarily a anti-Trump or a pro-Biden sentiment. It was, I'd like something different to see if I can get some jobs. And I'm sorry, Tamara, what were you going to say?
Oh, no apology needed, because you didn't interrupt me. I was going to say another reason that I think that that faction of the Republican Party is going to crash and burn is because the traditional Republican ideologies of no government interference, the free market, the things that the classic Republican stands for, that is not the QAnon, the Trump, the MAGA people. Those are not their priorities. Their priorities only exist as a in contrast to anything that the liberals believe in. Their priorities are only contrarian. There's nothing that they independently stand for. Their priorities are anti-BLM, anti-democratic socialism. They only stand for anything that is anti. Rather, that's why anytime Donald Trump was asked for any sort of policy on what is your plan for healthcare? What is your plan for infrastructure? He never had a plan. It was only undo anything Obama did. So you can't have a successful political movement that has no legs of its own to stand on. It only operates as a contrarian. It's just not, it's not sustainable.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, you definitely had some degree of, just I'm not Trump, but if you're able to give any of that, I'm thinking more back to the primaries before Biden was the nominee. You definitely had people that would actually take the time and explain it. But I think that it is a good point. And I was going to point out that I don't have any trouble believing how people cannot throw their support against a former president who promised to revolutionize the internet and social media and has done so by starting a blog. He essentially has a live journal now from the desk of Donald J. Trump. And while earlier today, Facebook upheld their ban for 6 months, which is a very Zuckerbergian thing to do. Like, well, not forever. We'll just revisit this. We'll see. We'll see which way the wind's blowing in 6 months. So he's got this blog out, and you can share posts from it on Facebook and Twitter. Unfortunately for Mike Lindell, who spent $1 million on a platform called Frank, there is indeed no button to share on Frank at the moment, but sometime soon. So I think that and then it's like, oh yeah, this is just the first step. We're still going to deliver on that new social media platform. And earlier, I think it was earlier this week, Trump telling Candace Owens that I'm going to have an announcement that you're all going to really like, when asked if he's going to run in 2024. And then I'm like, well, you're just assuming that people want you to run. I mean, the announcement that people really like might be like, yeah, I'm just going to play golf like a man of my age and girth should, just wear ill-fitting shorts for the rest of my life and hop from golf course to golf course. He's relocating country clubs. He's going from Mar-a-Lago to Bedminster, New Jersey, because it gets too hot in Florida for the former president. So I think that it's funny that this is what they think is, sort of revolutionizing things. Scott, have you paid any visits yet from the desk of Donald J. Trump? I know that when there are true innovations out there in the tech field, you always want to make sure that you're caught up so that you can understand what they're doing over there.
Yes, I have to say, I will have to check it. I have not yet. I wonder if he'll be able to do that from prison. When he moves from Bedminster, will he be able from the desk of Donald J. Trump there? That'd be my question. But yeah, I may have to check it out because my blood pressure has returned to normal. And, I might need to get a couple of spikes in there because it's been a while now without seeing any of his ridiculous posts.
You can play golf in prison, right? I think that's kind of there has to be somebody that's asking those important questions.
And those white collar prisons, I'm sure. Yes, yeah. I'm sure they let them
Well, you can kind of see how from the desk of Donald J. Trump has really just sort of revolutionized things. He's letting you know that Liz Cheney is a warmongering fool who has no business in Republican Party leadership. Elise Stefanik has his complete and total support. So look, here's what I was saying. You can post it on Facebook. You can post it on Twitter. He can't post it in those places. Right. Or you can just heart it. Both of those. So it's all right there. For the offering. Tamra, do you wish that you had beaten the former president to creating a online website where you can post comments that almost no one sees?
Do I create internet content that almost no one sees? Oh, I have no idea what that's like. Oh. Can't relate to that at all. Hardworking content that my mom and 2 other people like.
I have liked much of what I've seen. Some of it's a little too hot. The takes are too hot for me. I don't want to be on record, but most of it,
except on TikTok, that's my only platform. I get no respect.
Hey, now that's a catchphrase you might want to try and use.
I would encourage anyone who is not a supporter of Donald Trump to not read this blog and certainly not share it, because I have always believed that when he was on Twitter, when he was on Facebook, and I'm guilty of it too. I've shared tweets of his with quips, making fun of whatever he said. It's you got to do it.
How are you going to ignore hamburgers? You know what I mean? Like there's times where you're like, oh, I understand what my stance is on this, but I have to talk about Kofivi.
But I do believe, and as hard as it is to resist those types of nuggets, it's just giving him any platform, whether you're disparaging him, whether you're trashing him, it's still giving him a platform. And that's, any publicist will say it's better for people to be talking about you than not. And so this blog could just completely exist in obscurity, and I hope it does, and it's pretty likely that it will. But I just hope that anyone who is not a supporter of Trump just does not give this blog the time of day. Just let's not even waste our time, because we can find comedy gold in ample other places. We don't need to amplify this man's idiocy.
Well, I'll occasionally check on it so you don't have to, because I'm very lazy when it comes to generating topics and content. And I do, we were sort of talking about, some of the more moderate Republicans who roped in here. And look, I've been fairly outspoken about having really absolutely no respect or admiration for this individual. But there's times when you just have to even shake your head for even Ted Cruz, where you're just like, do you remember what he said about, he called your wife ugly. He alleged that your father was involved in the Kennedy assassination. And so he posts this picture letting us know that former President Trump is in great spirits. And it looks like Ted might have dipped into the spirits a little bit himself. But he did shave that ridiculous beard. So there's at least that. But I thought it was interesting, though, that he didn't post the photo that was taken a moment after this, which was when former President Trump was chewing up his food and baby birding it to him. That's actually what I thought we should all want to see. And I'm sorry, I can't resist that the top comment to this is comedian David Alan Grier. I think a lot of people remember him from In Living Color and all over places, but he's the top comment to this. And he asks, are they still fucking? So that was a hard one to resist when I saw it. Look, we could take the actual Ted Cruz part out of it, and maybe we should. But I don't know. I mean, I guess that they feel like they still feel like this guy's the kingmaker that they all need. And I don't know who is in Ted Cruz's ear that lets him think that he should actually ever run for president, that he might ever be president. I mean, first of all, I'm pretty sure that the man sitting next to him, that photo, also told us he was Canadian. And then I've also heard that he was the Night Stalker or the Zodiac killer.
Yes, the Zodiac killer.
There are so many reasons why this guy can't be president. So, have a little self-respect. Don't kowtow over to Trump. But then, Kevin McCarthy took a harsh stance against Trump for a second, and then he was right back at it. So is it that simple, Scott, that everybody's just that many people voted for him? I don't need them turned against me. I mean, we talked about last week. He said that he would campaign for a Democrat in Arizona against Doug Ducey. I think that is everybody just still that terrified that man, I just don't want him, posting a note on his website and then someone else sharing it on Twitter where people might actually see it, saying that he doesn't like me?
I just think, well, I posted on Twitter too yesterday. It had been a while since I'd gone on there, and I called him Dumb and Dumber. But then I thought to myself, who's the dumber one there? Is it actually Ted Cruz or is it Donald Trump? I'm thinking
that's the real
Ted
question.
Cruz.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
But it's just, well, first of all, Ted Cruz will never, ever be president, especially after his involvement with January 6th. So he should be fortunate that he is not out of the Senate as it is. And he will be very lucky if he can squeak out a win in Texas alone. And again, it's a losing strategy. Look at how Trump and the numbers, even in Texas, have continued to shift to the Democrats over time. And that Moore will still be a silly, like, slobbering all over Donald Trump. It's so, again, embarrassing and stupid. And I don't even know, like, Ted Cruz is such the antithesis of what you would expect a senator from Texas to be. He's the opposite. And it's just, it's depressing.
Do you think he's obviously been to a rodeo? I'm sure.
I'm not even talking about even that. I'm not even talking about the stereotype. I'm just talking about someone that would actually, have just some balls to be a senator that's going to represent one of the biggest states in the country, and it's not going to allow themselves to basically slobber over a president regardless of what political party it is. But the fact is, this Trump wasn't even popular in Texas, and as we continue to move forward, that state is going to become more and more purple anyway. So again, it's a losing strategy. There are a lot of people that are moving to Texas every day from places like California and Arizona and Nevada, other places that are already lean Democratic, and it's just a losing strategy. And again, it's someone who does not have a spine, and I do not understand the spell of this cult of personality that Trump has over people. I just do not understand it at all, because again, if he was somebody like a Ronald Reagan that was winning 49 states and you were like, I want to be on his side because he just is, winning by landslides and Democrats are voting for him and people love him, but they don't. So why you would continue to go after a sliver of a base vote that's going to continue to get smaller, as Tamra said, and allow yourself to be degraded and embarrassed like that is beyond me. But then again, most politicians don't have spines or have any kind of conscience, so that's very rare. Like Mitt Romney is one of the few that has always had character, and I said that even back in 2012. He at least had character. I wouldn't vote for him, didn't like him, and didn't think he'd be right for the country, but I never thought of him or George W. Bush, in that sense, as bad people. They thought they were doing what was best for the country. But now it's like you see people like Trump and the people that surround themselves and want to be in his good graces as people that aren't looking out for the best interests of the country. They're only looking out for themselves, and it's sad and embarrassing for them, but mainly it's sad for this country to see people like that.
Tamra, I'm going to apologize in advance for making a generalization here, but I'm going to assume that at some point in your life, you've had friends who were in a relationship that everyone knew they shouldn't be in. And maybe you even tried to tell them, or you knew better than to tell them. And sometimes it's just the idea, I'm not trying to make light of like an abusive relationship. I'm just talking about somebody bad.
I think I know where you're going. You think that Ted Cruz is thinking he can change Donald. Ted, you can't change him. You can't change him.
Yeah.
You can, you want to try, but
it's twofold. He thinks he can change him.
He's not going to leave Melania, girl. He's not going to leave her.
But Melania's eyes definitely wander. But it's also just the idea of like, I know he's not the greatest, but I just don't want to find somebody else. I've put so much time into this relationship with Donnie. I just don't want to look like they don't want to find somebody else. I mean, honestly, or I don't know who there is.
Just not fun. To continue with your analogy, look,
please,
Ted, you got to work on you. You got to work on you before you can find someone else. Yeah, seriously, because why? He doesn't even have to be a Mitt Romney or Liz Cheney who is anti-Trump. You don't even have to be that kind of Republican. Just be your own Republican. Only concentrate on yourself and your own platforms and your own strategies. You don't have to align yourself with Donald Trump, and you don't have to align yourself against him. That would be a much that would be a winning strategy. But as we just keep saying, he doesn't make sense, and to try to make sense of it, it will only drive us more crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that really is the case, is just trying to make sense of a nonsensical situation, and it's there's a lot of weeks where we don't do the first half of the show on Trump. I mean, we've taken his name out of the show, but he'd been fairly quiet for a while, and then look, when you have something as revolutionary as from the desk of Donald J. Trump, I feel like the world demands that you pay attention to it. But I do want to shift over a little bit and talk about the ongoing vaccine efforts, which we've talked about every week, as long as I can remember, as long as it's been this show. And things are cooling off a little bit, but the numbers are still high. Biden has the expectation of, or the goal of, getting 70% of the country at least one shot by July. And now it's like, you don't even need to make appointments anymore. This is like, again, Tamra, I don't want to make generalizations for two shows in a row, but perhaps there have been times where you've been a part of a comedy show where they're just giving tickets away to people just to get them to come in and hopefully buy drinks. That's kind of what they're doing with these vaccines right now. Now, I was reading New York in particular. If you go to, I almost said Shea Stadium, if you go to Citi Field or Yankee Stadium for vaccinations, they will give you free tickets. So they'll give you free baseball if you just come in and please take this maybe not entirely rigorously tested collection of chemicals and put it in your arm. We'll let you watch baseball for free. Doesn't that sound good? And I've seen people online who are just saying, like, look, if you gotta pay the rest of the people, you gotta bribe them. It's all right. I already got mine. I don't need to be bribed. Just whatever it takes, because it doesn't do that much good for those of us who have taken the time and gotten it if not enough other people get it. I mean, I guess what, like 40% of us could pod together. But I was reading that what I think September 15th, back to New York for a second, Broadway is going to open. And anybody's ever been in a Broadway theater, I mean, it's not like going to the movies. I mean, it's like twice as many people in the same amount of space you would have for a movie theater. So there's sort of like this. There's differing approaches where people are talking about the vaccine, and I just sort of wondering which of these each of you have seen. There's this idea that the Biden administration, this narrative that I don't buy into, is that they need everybody to continue to be scared and continue to double mask and triple mask, and as I always did, quadruple mask. I wanted to be extra safe. But the idea that they need this to go on, but at the same time, they're not telling people not to get it. If the narrative was they want the pandemic to last forever because then they can have more power, you would think they were like, yeah, sorry, we just keep leaving the fridge door open and spoil all these vaccines. So we're not going to have any for May either. It's just it just seems like a curious stance to take. And I don't know, Tamara, if you're seeing that approach, that this idea that the Biden administration in particular, but the capital L, the left, wants the pandemic to continue, wants people to stay scared. It doesn't really add up with the amount of effort they're going into to try to get people to take these shots that aren't getting them so far.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're right. The people who think that the coronavirus is a left conspiracy, pushing it on us, but then also don't feel like they're getting the vaccine. I think the problem is that the anti-vaxxers are a mixed bag. They are not conservatives. They're not only conservatives. They're not only conspiracy theories people. You've got your anti-vax MAGA person, but you've also got your earthy granola tarot card reading anti-vax person too, or your hippy dippy mother, helicopter parent with the kid in the free thinking preschool, the anti-vaxxer. There's a mixed bag of people, so it's hard to say, whether this person is, what Biden is promoting has an effect on this anti-vaxxer, because there's a lot of anti-vaxxers who are supportive of Biden, so it's hard to say. I bought Dodgers tickets, and they have, Christian, when you got your tickets, I don't know, did they have the vaccination section when you got your tickets?
They introduced that for after I think I bought my tickets. They specifically they had a series against the Padres that was sold out. So then they're like, well, here's the way that we can sell more tickets. What if we have a vaccine section?
Yeah.
But then it's but one of the things I loved about going to the Dodger game was that the row in front of me was zip tied. The row behind me was zip tied. My party was seated. The seats between us and the other party were also zip tied. I'm like, can they just leave these zip ties here forever?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to get up for anyone. There was no one in my way during the game. So I know that it's not fiscally viable, but if they could leave capacity at 15,000 at Dodger Stadium, I think I would probably go a lot more often.
Sure, and that's what people are saying about Disneyland too. But I just bought
which
tickets.
I'll be going there in 2 weeks, by the way. So I'll report back on what.
And movie theaters theaters as well.
Oh, yeah.
25% capacity at Disneyland. I'll report back on that. So did you buy tickets for the vaccinated section at Dodger Stadium?
I just got tickets, and I got them in the vaccinated section. And my friend that I'm going with was like, well, maybe we should, even though we're both vaccinated, she was saying like you, she wanted to get in the unvaccinated section because she wanted her roped off. She wanted to make sure that there were no people around. But I was like, yeah, but then we can't move because we're used to, usually trying, grabbing a better seat if there's one available. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I don't like the idea of feeling like I'm only allowed to stay in this seat. So we're trying the vaccinated section. I'm going to see what it's like. But my point in bringing it up was just that I'm so excited that it exists. I love that there is a vaccinated section. And I think maybe if we keep implementing vaccination privileges, like just different businesses have, if you're vaccinated, you can do X. That might be a way to encourage people who are tired of, not getting free ranch or a side of fries because they're not vaccinated. I don't know, whatever dumb perk somebody might offer that's not violating anybody's, any real right, but just a perk.
If they're doing vaccinations, if they're doing free fries, I think a lot of people would just get vaccinated again. Like, wait, free fries? I lost my white card. I don't think I've even had one. So I'll take the fries. And
I also want to point out, now they say 50% of adults have at least had one dose at this point.
Sure.
The people who aren't even necessarily against the vaccine. There are still a lot of people who work full time. Family, they're family caretakers. They just have not had the opportunity, and so I know that's why LA County is now making more of an effort to have mobile vaccination sites to try to reach places where usually underprivileged communities where people just have not had the opportunity to look up where a vaccination site is, make the effort to get there, do all those things. I know LA County is trying to make an effort now to bring vaccinations to people who have not had the privilege of going to get it yet. They're not against it. They just haven't had a chance to get it. So I think that sort of outreach that happening more often is also going to really help our vaccination numbers.
Yeah, no, I think that, if there's different ways to incentivize it, and I think that I think New York was one of them. When they first were opening stadiums and things, you were going to have to either show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test within the last, 24, 48 hours, whatever it is. But places like California aren't doing that. And I was a little surprised actually that there was nothing along those lines. Like for me to go to Dodger Stadium to buy tickets for Disneyland, you just have to have a billing address that is in California. But if you bought like 8 tickets, who knows where the other people are from, but there's steps, but you don't, I guess a lot of people still don't feel like they have to be vaccinated. And there are, I think that I think we talked a little bit about this last week. I've seen so much more of it in the weeks since. You have people that their whole focus seems to be on explaining why people who are wearing masks outside shouldn't. And I don't know. I just feel like it's if they want to, why do you care if somebody else is wearing a mask? If you don't want to wear one, they could possibly care about you. But why is it such a big deal? And I don't know. Look, when I drop my kids off at preschool, I have a mask on, and my kids wear masks at both of their preschools. And so something that was circulating earlier today was the second gentleman, Douglas Emhoff, giving VP Harris a kiss as she was leaving. And the point was made that they're both wearing masks, and he gives her a kiss. You can see it there. And instead of like, oh, okay, that's kind of a sweet moment or whatever, it's like, they live in the same household. Why are they wearing? Because like, I don't want to, the reason why I mentioned dropping off my kids, that I'm going to give them a kiss. I don't take off my mask to then kiss my kids around, like, other, teachers or administrators or whatever. Also because I don't really want them to feel like I'm that affectionate towards them. I want them to understand there's physical distance, distance to match the emotional distance that I put up between myself and them at all times. I think that's only fair. They'll turn out fine as a result. But
of course,
it's just, I don't know, Scott, sort of there's this like, why are people, there's this like shaming people for still taking it seriously. There's like, well, they say you don't have to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated when you go outside, but some people still do. So why are we stopping them? I don't know. What do you think sort of about the latest chapter in the story of vaccinating this country and trying to get back to normal?
Well, yeah, it was interesting you brought that point up, because they had the same thing with President Biden when he was out in the Rose Garden having that speech the other day, and they're like, well, he's been vaccinated and he's wearing a mask still, and his own CDC says that you don't have to outside if you're vaccinated, and blah blah blah. And I still say the point is, and they said apparently one of the spokespeople had said that, and he will start to not wear a mask outside. But the point is what he said all along, and it's the same thing with the vice president and her husband. It's all about modeling the behavior, and that's something that it's not just because not everybody's vaccinated right now, and it's also a physical reminder, like, hey, this pandemic is still ongoing. It is not eradicated yet, and if the people at the top positions of power are modeling that behavior of saying, hey, we're wearing a mask as a reminder for the majority of the country that is still not vaccinated or fully vaccinated, that you still need to do the same, and to take it seriously is better than the opposite. And I think if the president or the vice president and all that are starting to act like they're not wearing masks, then the rest of the people that are not getting vaccinated will think we're in the all clear. So you would still get the feedback from other people that are now complaining that they're not doing enough to take this seriously. So you can't win. But at the end of the day, the point is they're modeling the good behavior and saying this is what we're representing. And to get the rest of the folks out there in the country who have not gotten vaccinated, please continue to wear your masks and be, cognizant of that. And I think it's ironic, because they were talking about, like you were saying earlier, about how the left wants to keep the scare tactics and keep the pandemic going. But the irony about it is that it was the right and the Trump supporters and Trump himself who were not taking the pandemic seriously that got us into this mess to begin with. Because if they had actually taken it seriously and not been so flippant about it last year, we could have found ourselves outside of this pandemic way quicker than we did. And we were in a terrible surge in the winter because of their lack of leadership. So I just find it ironic that they are trying to flip that script, as they always do, because as Tamra said earlier, they have to be anti everything because they have nothing to actually support on their own, that we wouldn't be in this situation. So it's actually the opposite. It was the fact that Trump and his administration did not take it seriously enough that really put us in a situation where we are, and prolonged this pandemic, not to mention prolong the damage to the economy and the many deaths that did not have to happen. So it was on them to actually make it worse. And as you can see, the economy is doing great, which I find laughable too, because that was all Trump's boasting all the time. And Well, look, the economy continues to hit records every single day. So, of course, Democrats want to see the economy reopen and people get back to everyday life because the economy is doing great, better than it was, and the stock market is doing better than it ever did under Trump. So he doesn't even have that to hold on to anymore either. And that was the last thing that he had that doesn't even work anymore either because the economy is actually now doing better under Biden than under Trump. So all of their arguments have nothing to stand on. But at the end of the day, it goes back to modeling good behavior, and this president and vice president are doing that. And then we'll continue to do that until we see that we've gotten that 70% mark of people getting fully vaccinated.
Yeah, in the chat, Colette is asking if she can wait until the vaccine is FDA approved. So what is it now? If they've been giving it out, I was going to say it's
not.
Well, no, I mean, it's emergency authorized right now, so
right.
It's not technically approved. But their process is that they're hoping that it will be technically approved this summer. So yes, she is correct. It is all emergency authorized, all three. But as we've seen the rollouts happen, their safety levels and everything else have been consistent enough that it's just a matter of time to just go through the process. As we all know, with government, it just takes a long time for anything to happen. But it will be approved over the summer, and then from there, the approval for children to be able to have it, to be able to get those vaccines, will be approved as well.
Well, yeah, that was the other thing. I know we had a joke about it up top, but the movement to extend it right now because 16 and up can get it now. 12 to 16 is coming very quickly. And I was actually reading earlier about the next step that they're trying to get emergency authorization for is 2 to 12, which is, of course, very important to me because I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old that live in my house. And I made the mistake that, you probably shouldn't make whenever you see anything on social media. I read the comments and it's just everybody is like, why do they need emergency authorization for kids to get it? I'm like, it's just because it's not authorized yet, and they're the idea is like, well, I'm not going to give it to my kids. I'm like, well, then I hope your kid doesn't go to school with my kids. I mean, I didn't spend so much time on it, but I didn't find anybody who wanted to chime in and be like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. I mean, I was telling my wife, we're excited because we didn't think that our kids were going to be able to get it until next year. That was an early projection, was early 2022 before like small children would be able to get it. And I don't know. I mean, look, they're not going to give the same dosage that they give to a large hulking specimen of humanity like myself. They'll get the kitty size. They're going to get it in the
the children's Tylenol.
Yes, exactly.
In the little dropper. Yeah, exactly. It's the
bubblegum flavored Pfizer.
Yeah, it's the it's the cup that if they give it to you with your Happy Meal at McDonald's, you're like, what? I'm getting that size. So
like when my grandmother used to order coffee with the Happy Meal.
The senior coffee. Yeah. That's yeah.
When
you throw the coffee out so you
old.
can put the ash in it.
I want the Hot Wheels car and a coffee, black.
And yes, I'm 2 years old.
So I think that I don't know. I mean, I guess that for the most part, the actual like real social media interaction I have, it's people getting it. Getting the vaccines I'm talking about, and then you have some of like, ooh, I understand not trusting it. I've said this before. It's different than like, oh, I don't want to get my kids vaccinated for like mumps and rubella, things that are proven like 100 years ago. It's more like, well, this shot didn't exist a year ago, so I'm a little nervous. I'm like, okay, I get that. But for the most part, it seems like sensible people feel like, well, they're going to get it. And, yes, not everybody has to get it, but you need more than half of people to get it. But, California is going to great efforts to make sure that we continue to be leaps and bounds. We move to another tier, or we qualify and will be in that tier soon. I still don't I don't know exactly how it's going to impact my life just yet. But it's all encouraging, but I don't know. People, Colette saying that she wants to wait for the actual FDA approval. That's fine. Hopefully, Colette, when you're out and about at the supermarket, you're not going to defiantly not wear your mask, but just because think more of the people who work there than for yourself. But, I don't know. I think it is a very complicated thing. I just wonder that if Trump were still president, would the exact opposite, the people who have gotten the shots would possibly, I'm not saying all of them, but the people who are saying they wouldn't get it now, you would think that at least a lot of them would be like, well, okay, I guess we'll get it. But this was his thing. The people that want to give him credit for Operation Warp Speed, just last week I was trying to give him a little credit, but these
and I wasn't having it.
Yeah, no, I know you were not having it. Yeah. But those seem to be the people who are like, yeah, we can give him credit for it, but we're not taking that.
He got
shot.
vaccinated, right? Didn't Trump
Yes.
announced he got vaccinated?
Oh yeah, he got vaccinated while he was still president. Yeah, I think he had the guy with the with like the antlers who put his feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk. I think he actually administered the shot for him in a secret Q ritual. No, but he and Melania both got vaccinated before they left the White House. After they coughed all over everything. So,
See, so my question is the people that want to wait and see.
Yeah.
So what is the period of time when you're going to feel comfortable that, okay, now I've seen, okay, it seems to be okay. Sure. Because at this point now it's been a good 6 months since the first rounds have gone out, the trials and the first people to receive it so you're still not ready. So I'm just wondering, like, how much time 50% of the population has now received one dose and we're still fine. So like what period of time or what sort of needs to happen in order for these people to say like, okay, I think that it is safe now. I don't know.
And the Johnson & Johnson one, that's still on pause, right? I didn't miss that.
No, it's back.
It's back now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's good. So I'm glad that that's still an option. I thought Tamra, you really had a collector's item running through your bloodstream. You're like,
I'm proud that I got
one.
I'm proud that I got the J&J. It was just so easy to just have one shot. I don't know if I hadn't have gotten the J&J. I don't know if I would be fully vaccinated yet. Maybe at this point I would have had one shot, but I don't think I would have been fully vaccinated at this point. But because I did get the J&J when I did, I'm done. I'm 4 weeks post-vaccine shot. So I'm so happy I got that.
That's the other part of this argument is like, oh yeah, but you're going to have to get a booster in the fall and maybe you'll have to get one every year. I'm like, that's fine too. Like, okay. It's like it'll be just like the flu shot. I'm like, well, yeah, this is worse than the flu, despite what the former resident of 1600 Pennsylvania went and said on record. It is much worse than the flu. So if I need to get a couple during the year, I certainly will. But again, I do understand people having questions about it. But yeah, I do wonder how long are they waiting? Because. Yeah, we are easily 6 months in, and there was the issue with the blood clots that we had. There are a couple people that I know who are just like no, I am not getting it. I don't trust it. And anytime that anybody who's gotten the shot dies, baseball great Hank Aaron he got the vaccine, and then somewhere within the next couple months, I think he died. But he's also like in his 90s. So when hopefully Jimmy Carter lives to be 120, but if he passes away, are people then going to make the point of well, see, because there is somebody that I know really well,
living American What was her name? Patty.
Yeah,
she was like
Yeah.
116
there's somebody I
years
know really
old.
well that like every time somebody who has gotten it dies is like, that's why I'm not getting it. I'm like, all right.
Well, speaking of, did you see that interesting photo of
The
the
photo,
Bidens with
right, of the
Carter?
Bidens and the Carters.
It was so weird.
It was like something out of Being John Malkovich, you know, like they had to kind of
Yeah.
crouch down to get
They
down
were
with them.
crouching down, and they
Yeah.
were both on their knee. Like the Bidens were on
Yeah.
their knees next to them, and in these chairs. It was such a weird. It was so bizarre. Speaking of that, it just, yeah, threw me off. But you're absolutely right, though. If something happens to one of them, they're gonna be like, well, look. And look, I understand people's questioning it, and as we've talked about in this podcast, though, the technology that was used for both Pfizer and Moderna had been around for well over a decade, and this was the chance to be able to use that type of technology for these vaccines now. So it's not something that just came completely out of thin air. It is something that they have been developing, and they've been testing on multiple different types of vaccine trials throughout the past decade plus. So it's not brand new, and the J&J one is still based on sort of that older school model like you would have for the flu shot. So these are not like new things in that sense. The only thing that's new is that the Moderna and Pfizer ones had not been used widespread on vaccines. And so that's the difference. However, it's not like it came out of nowhere. They had been working on this for many, many years. And it's a very interesting use of this technology to be able to develop and tweak it for other potential diseases and things, as well as to be able to modify if you need a booster shot in the future. So I think that's the only reason why I was trying to explain to people that you can take some of the fear out of it. But yes, I understand, because even I felt that way too. I was like, oh, it's so quick. How do we know? There's not a basis, but also this disease came out of nowhere too, and we don't have a basis, and we still don't know what the long-term effects are for people that get it. And it's something that will take years to know, especially some of those folks that have long haul symptoms and other things of how it's affected, because it's also new. So to me, it's like I'd rather trust in a vaccine to help keep it at bay rather than going through and having, any kind of issues or reactions from actually having the disease for the long haul. So.
Right. And, we're hearing about how
Well,
just we'll talk about it in a second. The development of these vaccines is helping sort of figure out, treatments for things like HIV and, other long standing questions about, things that we could come up with medications and things for. It's like helping sort of solve some of these other problems. So, yes, here is the picture of the Bidens and the Carters. And the Carters, Jimmy and Rosalind, they look like those like haunted Annabelle dolls from those movies. They're like these little tiny like miniatures, and it's such a strange photo. And I guess it was explained that it was like a wide angle lens, but it was like in a small room. But man, that's creepy. Oh, and Colette does answer our question. Let me just let her chime in. When the trials are over and it gets FDA approved, look, I do understand that. She's talking about basically the summer. I hope you realize, though, Colin Hanks wants to make sure it's the other one. Chet Hanks. Sorry, not Colin Hanks. He's the respectable one. Chet Hayes, aka Chet Hanks, wants you all to know that it is going to be White Boy Summer. So Colette, you might miss out on White Boy Summer if you don't get vaxxed early enough. But you know what? I might have just made the exact argument why maybe you do want to stay inside and not get vaccinated. Maybe you want to miss out on White Boy Summer with Chet Hayes. Anyway, I think that that's really our time for this week. There's some other stories I want to talk about, but I feel like the raid on Rudy Giuliani's house is something that's it's a gift that's going to keep on giving.
Absolutely.
And it hasn't really yielded much just yet, but I think that
it will.
Yeah, exactly. That's one. That's a wine that I'm going to look at and I'm like, let's put that back on the shelf for a little bit. That's not ready to drink just yet, but we'll let that one age. But thank you to everybody in the chat. And Colette wants us to know that she does extreme efforts to keep her immune system up. I do not. So that's why I welcome vaccines whenever I can. In any case, I do want to make sure that everybody can keep in touch with us between now and next Wednesday. Tamra, where can people find you?
Hey, Tamra on social media, add an _ on Twitter.
And when is this Dodger game that you're going to, by the way?
The 15th against the Marlins.
Okay.
That's why
so
tickets were available.
the tickets were definitely available. Yeah. Exactly. The Marlins home
Hey,
ballpark in Miami is one that they don't have to worry about any social distancing. I do
That's
remember
right.
a game a few years ago that they literally sold 500 tickets, or the attendance, the in ballpark was 500. Scott, where can people find you?
They can find me right here at SMan80, and I'm on here and there. Definitely still calling out some of the sillier ones out there, but you can find me there, and I'll definitely comment and connect with you.
Yeah, look,
Anytime.
if Ted Cruz is going to post a picture at a Shoney's with Donald Trump, you're going to make sure that you comment on it. It might have been a Golden Corral. I don't want to.
Well, probably I was going to say for the fact of being at Shoney's, but
yeah. And as always, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ, and you can subscribe to the Blattcast YouTube network at Blattcast, BLADTCAST. You'll see this show. You will see Marvel Movie Talk, and of course the Blattcast, where we celebrated May the 4th earlier this week. That's why R2D2 and C3PO are behind me. They may just stay there forever until they fall over. But you can find that episode there where I spoke with a few friends, Lauren LaGrasso and Lindsay Floyd, who found Star Wars only recently in their 30s. So I thought it was for an interesting question.
Found it. Star what? What is
well,
this?
kind of, yeah. One of the for Lindsay, her boyfriend kind of sat her down. It's like, you have to watch this. And the other Lauren's story is just because she thought that Baby Yoda was cute, and it goes from there. So you can find that episode on the Blattcast YouTube page, and you can find all the shows that I mentioned, and you'll find us right back here next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we